everyone, Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Today we're going to take a look at a knife from SOG. This is probably my favorite knife design that SOG has ever done. This is not the original Aegis, which was in FRN and had the sort of weird, not an arc lock, but like an arc lock that they used to use for a while that kind of sucked. That design was a great design that had some issues in terms of its implementation. This is the same design offered in a very budget-friendly stainless steel frame lock with bearings and a flipper tab. And this one actually gets a lot of stuff right. In many ways, I like this better than the original version that came out. Now, by the way, since we're talking about the SOG Aegis, there is going to be an updated SOG Aegis available this year, which is 2020 if you're watching this sometime far down the road. And that I'm hoping really, fixes everything and becomes the knife that the Aegis really was meant to be from the start. And by all accounts, it's going to be pretty exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that. In the meantime, we've got this stainless steel frame lock to take a look at. And so let's talk about it just a little. This guy is just under 8 inches, 7 7/8 overall, 3 3/8 on the blade. 4 9/16 is the closed dimension, so that's how big it's going to be in pocket. This guy weighs in at 5.3 ounces, and in terms of grip area, if you're worried about how much you can fit here, all right, you can see, let me get my hand flipped over there for you. There we go. You can see I've got a full 4-finger grip there. It's 3 3/4 inches of grip area on here, which for me is just fine. Moving on to take a look at this blade, we've got HCR13 MOV with a full flat grind and a stone wash. Nice and thin behind the edge, and I actually like this blade shape quite a lot. Very capable knife, and it's fairly thin blade stock, so with thin stock and a thin edge, this slices very, very well. And the nice thing about a thin blade stock and being fairly thin behind the edge is a budget steel like HCR13, as it dulls, it's still going to perform reasonably well for you because it's so thin there behind the edge. So I've got to give some credit for that. And thinking of this, I think the price point on these is just a little over $20, not a whole lot. And, for that price point, HCR13 MOV is absolutely acceptable. I have no issue with that whatsoever. And I do like the grind and the shape of this. It actually performs really, really nicely for, the kind of cutting tasks that I end up doing with my EDC knife. Now, being HCR13 MOV, you're going to have to sharpen it a little more, but that's kind of what you expect at that $30 or $25, let's say, price point. All right, moving on to the action, the lockup and the deployment. We've got a stainless steel frame lock here. You can see the lock bar is quite accessible. Now, the stiffness on this in terms of, pushing it over is a little high, all right? And so if I sit here and do this, I've done it quite a few times in preparation for this video, it'll start to get a little uncomfortable, like the 100th time or something like that. But for average EDC uses, you're not going to be doing that over and over again. The detent is quite stiff and quite snappy. And even though this is a fairly light blade, which can harm the deployment, because of the length and the size of that flipper tab, you get quite a bit of leverage there, and it snaps out pretty darn quickly. It doesn't drop shut, largely because of the spring tension on that lock bar. So there's quite a bit of tension being applied to the blade here. And if you really wanted to take the time and energy, you could clean out the pivot, put a little bit of oil on the detent path, and probably get some improvement out of that. But for, a $20 knife, $25 knife, I'm not really going to get into all of that stuff. In terms of, does it open when I want it to open and close when I want it to close? Yes, it does. I don't really have too many problems here. It does have bearings, and I'm a little bit surprised at that. I would actually kind of prefer to see this done in the same way that they did the flash here with the bearing, with the washers and thumb studs, but they chose to go with a flipper, which is not a problem. It's still just fine. They probably could have done the flipper. The way the detent is set on this, it's stiff enough that if you had washers in here, you would still be fine. I think it would deploy just fine. And because of that extra lock bar tension there, you're not getting a drop shut knife anyway. You're going to have to close it. So you lose some of the benefit of those bearings in terms of the feel. But frankly, for 25 bucks, I think most people are just looking for a knife that's going to do their cutting tasks for them when they need it. And in that sense, this works really, really nice. By the way, again, very, very solid lockup here. Nothing side to side, nothing up and down. And that is a huge benefit compared to the original Aegis, every one of which had problems with the lockup. Not in terms of it coming unlocked, but they all had blade play. The handle here is going to be just a stainless steel Framelock, something we're all pretty well used to at this point. It is a single position deep carry clip, which is going to put off the lefties, but you know, how much can you expect them to do for $25? I guess they could have drilled a couple of holes over there, but they didn't choose to do so. In terms of how this guy feels in hand, oh, I guess I should show you. So it is standoff construction as well, and there's no internal milling. Again, there's not a lot to talk about here, just a pretty simple handle construction, easy to clean out. Feels actually quite good in hand. Now, the jimping here is somewhat effective. Of course, the choil here created by the flipper tab is going to keep your hand off that blade, and it's quite comfortable. When I was doing some cutting tasks with this, it didn't give me any hot spots. I didn't really have any issues. It's a little thin, and as you know, with any thin knife, you're going to feel that pressure inside your hand a little bit. You're going to feel that pressure on your thumb if you're really bearing down, but that's just the nature of any slim knife, and there's lots of slim knives out there, and it's sort of a trade-off we make. So it's slim in pocket. We're going to have just a little bit of less, it's going to be a little less comfortable. All right, compare that to, say, something like this, Best Tech Muskie, I guess this is called, where it's really, really thick and really round. And of course, this is going to be more comfortable, but when you put this in your pocket, it's definitely way more noticeable. All right, so let's do a couple of comparisons here. I've already showed you the flash, which is the obvious comparison to this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because they're very, very similar, and it's essentially a matter of which one do you like the look of better, maybe which one do you like the feel in hand. What else have I got? So budget stuff, Rat Model 1, you're going to be close in price. This, of course, is the D2, so it's going to be a little bit more, but the typical OS 8 one, you're going to be very close. Same thing is true of the Bird Raven 2. I think this guy goes for about $40. The steel's going to be better, so you're paying a little more for that steel, but we can bring the Muskie in again. Kind of a similar blade shape. I guess not that similar, but that full belly kind of puts me in mind of one another. This is, of course, on bearings, D2 steel, and it's going to cost a little more. You're going to get tired of hearing that a little more. Guess what? Here's another knife that costs a little more. Best Civivi Backlash, which I really, really like. This is actually my favorite Civivi I've tried to date, just because I love the hollow grind on that blade so much. Again, this is on bearings, liner lock rather than frame lock, and it is going to cost you a little more than the Aegis is. I think that's probably a good number of comparisons. I guess we can throw a pair of 2 in here just because most people are very familiar with it, and it might give you a good idea about size. Okay, so there you go, guys. Those are some comparisons for you. The big thing is this is going to cost more than virtually any one of those comparisons I showed you. There are some cheaper, you know, flipper knives out there that are going to be okay. This is not quite as refined as, let's say, you know, if I had something from Real Steel here or something from Reich here, those are going to be a little more refined, probably a little smoother in terms of action, but that's, you know, they're going to cost a little more as well. Honestly, for the price point, I think these go for around $25, and you can get one from White Mountain Knives. Go over there. I think they have them in stock. You can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF, and if not, shop around. You'll see these in Walmart. You'll see them at various places, and you should be able to get it for a really, really attractive price point. And for that, you know, as a really, really budget-oriented knife, it's hard to complain, guys. Really, what you're getting for you know, $20, $25 here is a very capable cutting tool. And so I've got to give this one some credit. They've done a really nice job here, and I'm glad SOG came out with these. You know, I said I'd like to see a version done just like this, but with a thumb stud rather than a flipper, and that would be a cool option, but it's not really, that's just my personal preference. It's not really fair to make that a complaint, because right, probably most of you watching are like, no, are you crazy, Kevin? We'd much rather have the flipper. So yeah, there you go. They've got a pretty good knife here. It comes in at a very affordable price point. You find them all over. I've had people report to me watching this channel, like I got one for, you know, $20 or $15 at Walmart. So for that price point, pretty hard to beat. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to use that link down below and check out Justin's White Mountain Knives. Use my discount code. That helps the channel. It helps you because you save 10%, and it also gives some business to a really good guy who makes it much easier to maintain this channel because of his shipping to Canada and because of the discount code that he offers the subscribers. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you soon.